I want to talk about a really interesting article I recently read and the implications that flow from it. So this was a 2019 article in The Atlantic about somebody who donated cord blood of her son after her son was born. And this is really common. People can choose to pay for private storage, or they can donate it basically to the public, and it can help save somebody's life. And that is what happened. In this case, there was a woman, she donated her son's cord blood, and years later, it actually helped save the life of a woman in her 20s who had cancer. They did this treatment and used his cord blood, and the family who made the donation had no idea. That's usually what happens, is you donate and that's it. It's anonymous and you never get an update. And if you save someone's life, you'll never get to know. If it didn't get used, you don't get to know. But that's part of the process. So this article was fascinating because it talked about the woman who had cancer, who used the cord blood, and she actually did ancestry testing, as people do sometimes to learn more about their background. Sometimes people do ancestry testing because they're hoping to find relatives. So in this case, somebody showed up as a match. And it looked like the match was such a close relative, this must be a mother or a daughter. And she knew based on the age, can't be her daughter, not possible. And that's the kind of thing one knows. But could it be her mother? No, in this case, she was certain it was not her mother. So what could it be? They thought that it was some kind of mistake. And so she did a little more digging, and she spoke with her oncologist because she had this idea that maybe this has something to do with the cord blood donation that she was a recipient of. And it seemed like not likely, and then it turns out there were other people in a similar circumstance who are finding people who donated or received cord blood, and it seems like this is showing up in ancestry testing, which is wild because these donations have been made under the presumption of anonymity, that people will not go back and contact the donor and ask for another donation, for example. I myself donated cord blood of my children when they were born. I knew that I was sending their genetic information out into the world, but with an understanding that it was anonymous. Now, all of us who have made those donations, or people who have had those donations made on their behalf, have something new to contend with, because the implications of this are quite significant. If it is showing up in ancestry testing, it may lead to some very confusing findings if people find genetic relatives that they believe are genetic relatives in the more traditional sense. So what could that mean? That could mean somebody believes that they have found a birth mother. If they know they're adopted and they're looking, they could believe they found a genetic sibling. Or it could lead someone to believe they were conceived using donor egg, sperm, or embryo. If they found someone that looks like a genetic match, they might think, my goodness, my parents have not been honest with me because this person appears to be my genetic parent. So it has huge implications. It could also be emotionally devastating for someone who's looking for that genetic relative, thinks they found it, and really it has to do with a donation that was made through this banking system and had nothing to do with using somebody's sperm or egg to have a child or adoption or anything of that nature. So I'm fascinated by this, certainly reflecting on my own decision as a parent to have made this decision, and now realizing I will need to have discussions with my children when they're older to prepare them if they do ancestry testing about what findings could potentially appear so that they don't reach the wrong conclusion. So really interesting stuff. If you have received donated cord blood or donated on someone else's behalf or thinking about doing that, I hope that this is useful information for you to make more informed decisions and just be aware of potential consequences that until fairly recently did not seem to be known as a potential consequence. So that's it for this video. I hope you learned something new, and I'll see you in the next one.